Hello and welcome to MINKA Vision. I'm your host, Tricia Ben-Davies, and today my guest is LeMar Moore, who is an attorney. He's a holistic health coach and energy healing practitioner who practices Reiki, the Usui method, vortex healing, integrated energy therapy, coaching, a host of other things. LeMar he uses behavioral change techniques and energetic tools to empower his clients who often feel lost or stuck in their lives, and helps them find deeper meaning and purpose. Thank you for joining me, LeMar.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I wanted to ask, and I always start off with this, but how did you find your way to MINKA?
I was just intuitively guided. That was really the long end, or the short end of it, really. I was in a period where I actually felt like, it's kind of weird, but I actually felt like I got introduced to sort of the dark side of like occult magic, that sort of stuff.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I had heard about practices, like certain Wiccan practices and stuff like that. You know, I came from a big Christian background. It was like, all of that is the devil, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, some aspect of that manifested. So I felt like viscerally hurt by people who, it became clear much later, were using like spiritual gifts in a way to sort of put me in my place or teach me a lesson or, you know, whatever it may be, to hurt me. And I felt it, I received it. But the beautiful thing is, after that, there's this light bulb that went out. Like, wait a minute, I just received something from the spiritual realm. Yes, it hurt me. Yes, it attacked me. But that means that this is real, and that, you know, that realm is able to influence and touch my real material reality. And so that sort of led me to like, well, what is this? I got to learn more about this. I got to follow this. And this passion just woke me up. And sure enough, all of these like divine synchronicities started happening. I kept finding books, finding resources, and eventually I got to MINKA. And then as soon as I walked into MINKA, like everybody else does, you walk in and like, you feel it. Yeah. And so, I met Aki, and then Manu was another practitioner there, and it was over. And I was like, all right, y'all are not getting rid of me now. It's your stuff. I'm sorry.
I love that. That's such a beautiful story. And like you said, it's right. Like when you, as soon as you walk in, there's like this, it's like your soul size, and also like all of the energy and the spirit, like the space size too. It's just like, welcome home.
Oh, speaking of Sai and welcome, I think you mentioned you wanted me to ground the space or open.
Yeah, I would love that. I've experienced your meditation, and they always are so grounding, but also lifting as well. So I thought that it would just be nice, if you could open us up with just creating sacred space and helping us ground in.
All right. So let's first, you and me, make a connection. We're family. So just receive me as your brother. I receive you as my sister, including all the noises of Harlem in the background and all the peace and quiet of where you are. Let's just first accept that, accept everything that's happening. And if you're watching this, whoever or wherever you are, take a moment to just accept who you are and where you are. Breathe it in. And exhale slowly. Take another deep breath in, deeper breath into the nose. And exhale slowly again from the mouth. And then you may know this, or you may just intuit this, but just feel from the east, the energy of air, the air you're breathing in, the air that keeps you alive, the air that refreshes you. From the south, the energy of fire, fire that energizes you, that awakens your passion, that awakens your unique energy, your unique voice, your unique presence. Breathe that in. And then from the west, breathe in the energy of water, water, water. And this energy helps you to understand that you're not just one person, you're actually multiple people. You're multiple lives, multiple souls, multiple dimensions, all trying to coexist in this one moment, in this one body, in this one mind. It's a constant harmonizing, balancing that's going on. And then from the north, you call in the energy of earth and ground where you are. Just accept who you are right now. You're not who you used to be. You're not quite the person you want to become yet. But who you are right now is pretty damn good. Let's just embrace who I am right now. Who you are right now. And coming back to these, back where you started, remembering that life is just a continuous cycle, knowing that you see and witness and breathe in and experience and become more. Each time you go through this beautiful, beautiful cycle. And let's come back to the center and begin.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you.
I just love how powerful our presence is. You know, when we give ourselves permission to drop in, when we give ourselves permission to just acknowledge where we are.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I also love what you said about cycles, because I was just listening to Matherin, who is an astrologer.
Yes, don't talk about Mal. I love her.
I know, right?
Mal does not know how much I love her, but she's gonna one day. She's gonna.
Yeah, our beloved astrologer at MINKA Brooklyn, Moon Lady Astrology on Instagram, and so she did just a brief talk yesterday about how America, we're in this cycle, we're coming up on our Pluto return, you know, and Pluto is, you know, death and transformation. And it's not a coincidence that we are both wearing black right now. I just noticed. And this brings me to something that Frederick Douglass said actually in a speech he gave, where he said, "This July 4th is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn."
Wow.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because we are just on the heels of Juneteenth, you know, and you hosted that lovely event on divine sovereignty. Can you talk a little bit about how you celebrate Juneteenth?
Sure. Juneteenth is, for me, it's this mix of like mourning and celebration. I think, let me try not to get too spacey, but I feel like because we're in a universe of duality, sometimes like the contrast is what helps make the opposite stand out. And so for me, celebration is just more intensified when it's coupled with mourning. And so mourning sort of what my ancestors went through, just reading up and learning more about the atrocities. I mean, as I've gotten encouraged to learn more, it does sink in the mourning. Like, I cannot imagine being in Western Africa, being kidnapped, having my children, me, my family, marched for, God, I forget how long it is, but it's some unbearable amount of time to a ship. Many people died just on the march of the ship. And then to be placed in a boat, I think some were even held in dungeons before they were loaded as cargo onto ships. The Middle Passage itself was just like a torturous experience. You know, so as I just start really letting it sink in, just how much atrocity happened to human beings. You know, I think there's a part of us as Americans that really like, yeah, we hear it and read it in our heads, but we don't really feel like what happened and how horrible it was. And the more I really internalize that horror of it, oddly enough, that is what helps me to celebrate. Because I realized like, wow, you know, to have gone through that level of atrocity, that level of pain, that level of torture, what strength it took to survive that. What power it took to survive that. And I come from that, you know, like, and you're damn right. Like, if my ancestors went through that, I better celebrate. I better be me, you know, like I better vote. I better be free. I better, you know. So anyway, I hope that makes sense, but it's sort of like, Juneteenth for me is like, as I ground in more of the horrific reality of what happened in the past, it allows me to be more embracing, blissful. I have a responsibility to celebrate this future, this time now. I hope that makes sense. But
it makes perfect sense. And, you know, if it doesn't make sense with the words, I think the vibration, not to get too spacey again, but I think the vibration of your message, it definitely comes through. And like you said, it's about the courage to allow ourselves to feel that pain, you know, and to feel that anger and just all the feelings that come up with our history. And so, being that today is Independence Day, you know, a lot of us are celebrating in non-traditional ways because of COVID, and, you know, we've been asked to stay home, and, you know, there's no fireworks. But thinking about this morning, how do you mourn on this day? How do you honor the grief that comes up for a lot of us on this Independence Day?
As much as I'm hurting and as much as I'm angry and I feel those feelings, I think I balance it by also celebrating the fact that, yes, I am a descendant of slaves, but I'm also very much American. And so it's funny enough, you mentioned no fireworks. We're here in Harlem. They're like, nah. They're popping. They have not stopped popping fireworks like
Yes.
day and night. And we're like, everyone's like getting fed up. But how powerfully American that is. That's actually the spirit of the Boston Tea Party. That's actually the spirit of what founded America. It was this, I'm not going to put up with, what do you call it, oppression, this oppressive authority. You know, I'm going to celebrate and be free no matter what. And so what I try to do, you know, is realize that Juneteenth and 4th of July are not oil and water. They do belong together, right? Just as much as I'm Black and just as much as I honor what I come from that stock, what I'm trying to do, it's not easy, is to acknowledge that, you know what, yes, I'm also American, regardless of at its inception, I was not necessarily what was contemplated. In some sense, I am very much what was contemplated. You know, I built this country. Right? I am more American than many of the founders of America in some sense. And so that's sort of what I'm doing on 4th of July. It's just like not seeing like our founding fathers and all of that as like, you know, even that term founding fathers for like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and all of that, but not seeing them so much as if some other. Seeing myself as just as much a part of that, which is a challenge given that like I was explicitly not, you know, imagined to be part of that, but I am, whether they choose to admit it or not. That again, I hope this makes sense, but that's sort of. It
totally does. It totally does. And you know, yesterday, Disney Plus put out Hamilton,
which I still haven't seen.
Yeah, so you can watch it, and it's so interesting because like I went to see it on stage, but watching it in my home with my family, and then knowing that Hamilton himself owned slaves, you know, and now his story is being retold with people of color, and it's just such a rich and complex history that like lives within all of us. And so I think me personally for a long time was grappling with, you know, my parents are from West Africa and I'm very much, you know, Black American. And it's like, how do those two conflicting worlds meet? And I was just like, well, I don't feel American enough. I don't feel African enough, but it's like, I am all of it, you know, I'm whole, perfect, and complete, you know, as Louise Hay would say. And it's just the challenge of right now of, yeah.
Right.
Really, yeah, just like letting that ground in and really owning all parts of ourselves and not shying away from the things that make us uncomfortable. So yeah.
Yeah, you know, I almost call that like the process of going from wartime to peace. Right?
Mm.
So, I don't know if that's sort of what you're saying, but there are these like conflicting
Yeah.
inside of you, conflicting identities, right? Like identities that at their core have a history of not liking each other.
Mm-hmm.
I'll even add for me, like June is also Juneteenth, but it was also Pride Month. I'm definitely open gay, but how do I also reconcile my rich Black history with that culture of homophobia? You know, and so there are these energies that we all carry sometimes when we have this like intersectionality going on that don't necessarily get along. They're kind of at war. But at some point, me being here now, I think I have to be the one that says, all right, it's time for a truce. You know, at some point, we do have to stop fighting and come to like, what is our resolution? You know, and so that's that to me is like grounding. And yeah, how do you do that? That's
Yeah. How do you fight a war? And how do you find peace? I love that analogy. How do you stay well? Like, what do you do to take care of yourself?
All right, Jesus, that is a question. What is any, you know, especially now? Go within. Go within. The answer is going to be different for, yeah, I want to be clear that my answer is not necessarily anyone else's answer, but for me, being who I am, it's go within and really just come to a better knowing of what the answer to that who am I question is. Yeah, I just really dedicate myself to answering that. Knowing who I am is how I stay well. I have to. And so.
Yeah, I love that. Also, I was asking the question specifically to you. This just speaks to how much of a teacher you are. And how much of an amazing guide, because that question was how does LeMar take care of himself?
Yeah, it's funny you said that. Part of the knowing myself has been reaching out and getting readings and looking for patterns, and every single one has in some way insinuated that I am the teacher archetype and a guardian, so or some form of those. And so like it's interesting to hear you confirm that.
Yeah.
But you know, that's an example. As I really know that and don't reject that and accept it, wow, I know who I am, and so that helps me to not worry so much about, you know, what's going on outside and all around, or even what's going on in my head, or really, like at some point I have that anchor of like, all right, after all of this chaos is done, when I go to bed tonight and lay my head on my pillow, I know who I am. I really do, and that's just that just wipes the whole slate clean.
Yeah.
That's how I take care of myself. The more I can do that, the better I can just like etch at the end of the day, like wipe all that off. I know who I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think that that's something that I'm, or one thing that I learned from my grandmother. She used to say this as a mantra, "Me na God Pekin," which is Creole for "I am God's child."
Yes.
And the way that I think about that is that in the eyes of the divine, in the eyes of God, universe, spirit, we can do no wrong. You know, we are, again, whole, perfect, and complete. And so, yeah, when we are in this world and we get bombarded with all these messages and things that aren't ours, and repeating these stories and things that don't belong to us, you know, what helps you just clear that away? Yeah, and going within, that's the key.
Right. Know thyself. That's that's really it. So that's how, you know, I stay well, and yeah, you know, however that looks like for me is, you know.
What was that? I didn't hear that part.
You know, going within, you know, that sounds simple, but that's also sometimes like it's a process. But you know, however it looks for me is whatever works for me is what I use. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like peeling the onion. or those Russian dolls. It's like you get done with one layer and then you're like, okay, I can do the next layer.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, speaking of, you know, going within and being a child of the universe, can you talk a little bit about like what's happening from a divine masculine, divine feminine lens? Like, what are we experiencing?
What's happening in like the universe? You know, just
Yeah.
hopefully in one
What
sentence.
does the universe have to say? LeMar?
All right. Well, I'm going to trust that, you know, you're going to give me an answer. What am I receiving right now? Ooh, a lot of disruption from the God. So what I'm receiving right now from the divine masculine is start listening to the divine feminine. We mentioned this war, this intersectionality, right? The oldest war, I think, is between, just what I'm feeling right now, the oldest war is between God the Father and God the Mother, in our minds, right? Like, gosh, how do I even say this? From a divine masculine perspective, what I would say is that what's happening now is that there's this period of unity that's happening, right? We grew over time as a necessity into these organized, segmented cultures, these organized, segmented people. You know, we organize by states and then by countries, and then we have borders here and structures there within our businesses, within our job, within our lives. We compartmentalize so much stuff. We're moving, and this is what the divine masculine would say too, you're moving, your future, divine masculine speaks in part to future. Your future is to a point where there are no borders, there are no restrictions, there are no limitations. Everything is one, everything is whole. There's no separation. You know that, everybody knows that. At some point in the distant future, everyone's going to be like one community, one voice, one, you know, whatever. And so we have to move to that, and that's not necessarily like easy for us to do. And I think we're seeing the emergence of the goddess, the issue of God, the divine feminine, a voice that's been suppressed, hidden, very attacked for so long, coming to the surface for unification, right? And so just to give you a practical example of what that looks like, I think what we just talked about, the idea of Juneteenth and July 4th being these separate things, right? Like feel that energy of how separate we treat Juneteenth and July 4th. Feel the energy, even like, let's call it Columbus Day, right? The energy of how separate it is when we think about indigenous peoples, and it's indigenous people today versus Columbus, right? Those are two very separated energies, and we have formed these like camps of one side fighting the other. We both have to remember that at the end of the day, the resolution will be both of those coming and sitting together at the same table in love. And I don't think that can happen until like the suppressed voice speaks up, the subjugated voice speaks up, there's justice served on what happened in the past. And so in some aspects, whatever aspect of you represents the goddess, the voice that was suppressed, subjugated, oppressed, restricted, limited, that might be your race, that might be your gender, that might be, who knows, maybe your body. Maybe we ignore our body for too long. And we do these things. We don't take care of our bodies. We don't treat our bodies as like sacred. Maybe it's our feelings. Maybe we suppress our feelings. We ignore how we feel. We ignore what makes us happy, what makes us come alive, what makes us feel included and whole for the sake of, you know, I got to get this done. I got to, you know, whatever it is. That's what's happening. Whatever has been cast in the shadows is now being welcomed back into the light, and there's a unification that's happening. Not everyone wants that to happen, but it's going to happen. And so how do we come to peace with that, come to terms with the fact that we will all get along with each other one way or another? Again, I hope that made sense. But
that was beautiful. That was thank you so much for that perspective and for that message. Because as you said, yeah, I think a lot of us are still approaching this situation from very hurt places. Exactly. You know, like that's why we are so polarized.
Yeah.
And as we continue to heal, as we continue to do the work on ourselves, you know, we'll find forgiveness, we'll find compassion,
Yes.
which are, you know, we'll find empathy. Those are all, you know, that divine feminine, those traits, that's the power. Those things are returning to us. So I'm definitely optimistic, because it's already done. You know, this is where we're going. So
Exactly.
beautiful. This has been such a rich experience already. What else do I have to ask you? Oh, you have a workshop series coming up, Vortex Healing, which starts this
Tuesday.
This Tuesday. Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Where do we begin with that? So the workshop is Vortex Healing, Divine Vortex Healing, but it's a mind cleanse. And so it's essentially like how much stuff is getting jumbled up in here, right? Like, I mean, man, is it being piled on? And ways we see and ways we don't see. All of these issues that are coming up for the surface, it's like, you know, we're just overloaded. And so at some point, we do need the experience of at least sensing what it feels like to have all of this stuff just clear for a second. Breathe. There's nothing on your mind right now. There's nothing on, you know, there's nothing on your to-do list. There's nothing like peace of mind, right? And so that's ultimately, in a nutshell, the goal of Tuesday's workshop. It is to take us into an experience of peace of mind and like plant that seed, knowing that eventually, like, you will get there. And so get there permanently. And so it's designed to give, at least for that moment, a cleansing experience that the body can then absorb, integrate, ground into the material reality in whatever way is good and perfect for you. And so that's it. It uses vortex healing, which is a modality that's based in like alchemy. I don't want to get too weird for people who are like not familiar with this stuff, but it's a lineage that actually comes out of the Ascended Master Merlin. Merlin is, you know, funny enough, when I was a kid, I used to love doing like magic tricks, and I used to love the King Arthur stories and Merlin. And I always pictured, you know, Merlin as this like old white guy with a long beard and blah, blah, blah. Merlin is actually a title and not a person, sort of like Christ, right?
Oh, wow.
But considered to be, yeah. So Merlin actually just represents, you know, simply like, somewhat like Christ, it actually represents a consciousness. Merlin also represents a consciousness. So just as Christ consciousness is like love, unity, compassion, love, Merlin consciousness is alchemy, magic, divine transformation, whatever you want to call it. It's the primordial sort of surrender, understanding that, you know, at some point when you go back down the lineage of the history of the universe, at some point we all kind of have to acknowledge that something at least appeared to come out of nothing. Something appeared, you know, like something appeared to happen just by magic, by some means we can't explain. That's sort of the Merlin consciousness, and Vortex channels that. And so we can, for example, like I can channel Vortex like into your heart chakra. And you know, something happened, right? And so a divine transformation takes place. It's similar to Reiki. Reiki is more surrender, like you just sort of let it flow. If you're a practitioner of Reiki, you know, you can't think, you just, you know, let it flow through you. The more calm, relaxed you are, the better. Vortex is on the balancing end of that. So Vortex is like, no, I can't just be relaxed and let it flow. I actually have to very strongly hold, as a practitioner of Vortex, a particular intention. I have to intend to expand your heart chakra right now and hold that intention in order for it to work. And it works by having a vortex sort of attuned inside of me that helps me bring in that Merlin consciousness and transmit it wherever it needs to go.
This is so cool. This is so cool. That sounds amazing. Okay, Tuesday, what time? I'm gonna be there.
Tuesday, 7 p.m. You can register at my website, lemarmoore.com, or at MINKA. It's also on MINKA. If you're a Patreon member, if you are a Patreon member of MINKA, you can, I think, get a coupon or something.
Nice. That is so cool. Thank you so much. I've learned so much from you today. I think that's it. Do you have anything else you want to share with the people before we go?
I have like days and days. I'm gonna be like one of those grandpas that will never stop talking until you walk.
Yes. Yes.
Just cut me off. I think the last thing I would share is just pat yourself on the back. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing right now, just take a second to just like pat yourself on the back, because you know very well that you have done an amazing fucking job. And I say that to myself even as I say it.
Yes.
That's what I'll say in closing.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I think, yeah, self-acknowledgement is so simple and so powerful, right? And like you said, especially with like the Black experience, the things that our ancestors had to go through to survive, and the miracle it is that of our lives that we're here, you know? And so I've been saying this, like, if you're alive at this time in our history in the world, like, this is not by accident. So yeah, celebration.
That's all I got. That's all I got. Put the camera off now before we...
I know. Thank you so much. And I look forward to a part 2. We got to do this again.
We will.
All right, later.